Hello everyone and welcome back to Java Forever course. Currently we are learning user defined functions, and in this we have learned how to define a function, what is the signature of a function, the inputs, the output, and all of that part. Today we are going to learn the scope of variable with respect to a function. What I mean is, when you define a function in Java, it can have its own variables, and the calling code can have its own variables. Let me give an example. Without writing code, I want to show you theoretically at a high level what really happens. Let's say we write a program. This program is nothing but it's a class, and it has a multiple functions. One of the function, the entry point in this function is what we refer as main method. Right? We write like this: public static void main. We have already seen that. Now we define a couple of more functions. Let's say we write a function 1, we write another function 2, and so on. If we declare a variable at this level, we are basically saying that any of the methods in the class can use it, and this is what we refer as global variables. When you say global variables, any function or method declared and used in this class can access that. But if you define a variable inside a function, whether it is a main function or it is function 2 or it is in function 1, if you declare a variable inside, then this is called local variable. And today we will learn a little bit more about the difference between local and global variable, and what does it really mean when we say, what's the difference between these two, and what does it mean when we declare a global variable, and why we should care about global versus local variable. Now if you look at the code on the left side, in this code we have defined a variable here at the top level, which is outside these two functions. There is a function called main here, this function, and there is another function, let's say f1, display underscore value. Now if I declare a variable on the top, and again ignore the static part, we have a variable called int test. This variable, which is not part of any function, is referred as global variable. Now a variable which is inside a function, many times you declare a function and then you do a lot of calculation inside the function. You may declare a lot of temporary variables inside it. All that is, anything inside is local variable, any variable inside. Now that you understand that what is a local variable and what is a global variable, why do we really use global variable? Why can't we always use local variable? The answer lies in the sharing. If you want one variable or this value to be used across one or more functions, in that case you want to declare this on the outside and either update or use the value in one or more functions. That is how two functions share a variable, because if you declare it inside this function, when you write a function and you write these curly braces, suppose this is a function or method, these curly braces defines a pair of curly braces define the scope of the variable. That means anything and everything that you declare inside is limited to this. Once our program execution gets out of this, all these variables are cleaned from the memory. Now if two functions want to share a variable, then only way to do is to define at the global level, that is outside the function. That way f1 and main both can access it. The second part is, you can also use the parameters when you want to communicate from one function to another function. Let's say I have a function here, and this function wants to call this another function. I can pass a parameter or value inside, and it will go inside here in the display value, and we can use it. That is what in majority of the cases we do. But in some scenarios, that is the preferred way, where you want to pass a value from one function to another function, use it, and then get the result back. But in some cases, you want to share a variable, because that variable will be shared across multiple functions. And that is why Java provides that, feature where you can have a global variable too. Now we have to be careful of how we modify the value of global variable. If we are reading the value of the global variable in multiple functions, then there is no problem. But then problem arises when more than one function is using it and also modifying the value. It is setting the value of that variable. Then we have to be very careful, because unintentionally we may override a value which otherwise we should not have in one or more function. So take a look at this one, how the value of a variable is used. Now in this code, as you can see, we have declared a variable here on the global level, and then we have a main function. The main function first uses the variable. If you notice, we did not say here int test 10. We did not do that. Int test equal to 10. We didn't do that. The reason is the definition is already here. We are just initializing here. If you remember my example in the past, from the previous classes, when you declare a variable, you declare and initialize both, and both can be done at the one time, or both can be done separately. In this case, we declare the variable in the global level, and that way it can be reused. But the first time we are setting the value inside this function, main function. Now, once we set here 10 and we say print the value, what will it print? It is going to print 10. Now let's call this function, and you will notice that this function does not return any value. Why doesn't it return any value? Because we are going to just print a value, and also we'll attempt to modify the value of the global variable called test. So now let's look into the function itself. In this function display value, what has really happened is, in the display value there is no parameter. We are not passing any parameter. It is not returning any value, but we are doing test equal to test plus 1. We are saying test plus plus. Now there is no variable here called int test. There is no variable. Why not? How can we use a variable test without even declaring inside this? That's because it is already declared at the global level. But in this code, what we are doing is we are increasing the value of that test by 1. Now if I go and print this value immediately, it will print 11, because we increased the value of global variable here when we said test plus plus, we actually increase the value of this test global. When you print test here now, after incrementing the value, it is going to print 11. Now after the code returns here, it goes to the next line here. And now what will happen back to our main code? If I go and print the value of test here again, will it be 10? Not really. It is going to be 11, primarily because the global variable were modified. So think like this. You have a variable called test. Let me actually write it outside. Test. And see how memory is managed. You have a main function. And you have a function called display value. I'm creating a shortcut here. Display value d_v. Now this value sets to 10. Test is 10. And it prints immediately. What will it print? Current value is 10. And again, this is part of a global program. So these two functions are accessing the global variable. And then you go inside display value and you say test equal to test plus 1. What will happen now? This will overwrite and become 11. Now if you print, whether you read that value from here, it will show 11. Even you read it here, it will still say 11. And that is why you see the value of test becomes 11, because we modified a global variable. Hope this is clear. Now let's take one more example. And in this case, we'll take a little bit different scenario. In this example, we are going to take our discussion and learning further and experiment by adding a couple of more functions. What I mean by functions is that you can see in this code here, we still have a global variable at the top, which is outside the function. And then in this case, we are still setting the value 10. And we have already seen this scenario where we call a function. Now, when you call display value 1, we have a display value a method. This method is called, but interestingly, this time we have declared a local variable test also inside. Now this local variable declared inside the function has the same name as the global variable. What would really happen? Remember, the way memory is managed, when you create a global variable, think of it as like a common area. This is common area. And these are the rooms in the hotel. So there are 3 rooms. In fact, there are 4 rooms here, as you can understand. The first room is main. Second room is, the function A. I'm not saying this is a room. This is a function actually. Function A, function B, and function C. I did not write the full name, display underscore value A. I'm just, abbreviating it to function A. Now, this common area, when we declared, let's say, actually I should write it outside. So I'm going to erase that. But what will happen is the common area will be accessed by all the functions. So when you declare a function, this is a common area. So when you declare a variable called test, it will create a room number test, and variable will be set to 10. Now you go to function A. When your next statement is calling function A, you go in function A and you declare another variable test. What will really happen is, this is a local variable inside the function. So think of this, it will create another variable inside here called test, and then value is set to 7 here in this line. Now if you print here value of test, what will it print? It will print 7, because we are referencing or reading the value that we declared locally. If you do not declare locally and try to use test, Java is going to find out did you declare it globally or not. And if it is declared globally, then it will print the value global. So local kind of overrides whatever you are doing globally, but it is not changing the global variable. It is still, setting this value and setting the value 7 and printing it. When you return it, and if you print the value of 10, suppose I want to print the value of 10 here after the, this function call, it will still print value of test as 10, because 10 is the global one that was set. When we call the function modified a local variable test, not the global one. That is why test value 10 is still untouched. Similarly, when you call function B, you'll notice function B has its own variable test value 9. If you print this, it will print 9. But again, we did not touch or change the value of test, which is defined at the global level. Similarly, now if you go to function C now, what will happen is function C does not have any local variable. If we print value of test right now, it is going to reference the global variable. You are reading this value because C does not have any local variable called test. So Java is going to read from the global pool and print. Now if you go and increase the value of test by 1, it is going to increase the value of 10 to 11 here. It is function C cannot touch the variables declared in A or B. Those are private to that function. Anything that's global is accessible. That's why I called it a common area. Hope this explains the role of difference between global and local variable. How, when you declare a local variable with the same name, it will overwrite, not really overwrite, it is a 2 different variable indeed. Okay. So go ahead and take a quiz, test your knowledge. If required, come back and watch the video or read the text, look at the example again, and you should be able to get it. If you have any questions, feel free to post in the forum. Either me or one of my associate will be looking into it regularly, and we try our best to answer students' questions. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys again in the next class. Don't forget to like the YouTube channel. There are other courses that you can use it. We are coming pretty close to the end of the chapter. So, if you have survived so far, a couple of more classes and you will be really good at Java. Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching. Do subscribe and press the bell icon for more videos.